Now we're going to be graphing hyperbolas centered at the origin. When we have an equation in standard form for a hyperbola centered at the origin, we can interpret its parts to identify the key features of its graph: the center, the vertices, co-vertices, asymptotes, foci, and lengths and positions of the transverse and conjugate axis. To graph hyperbolas centered at the origin, we use the standard form. X squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared is equal to 1 for horizontal hyperbolas, and the standard form y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared is equal to 1 for vertical hyperbolas. Now, given a standard form equation for a hyperbola staring at 0, 0, we want to sketch the graph. First, we have to determine which of the standard forms applies to the given equation. Number 2, you're going to use the standard form identified in step 1 to determine the position of the transverse axis, coordinates for the vertices, co-vertices, and foci, and the equations for the asymptotes. So if we know that x squared is the positive term, then this is going to be our equation. Then the transverse axis is on the x-axis. We have the coordinates for the vertices, plus or minus a, 0. The coordinates of the co-vertices, 0 plus or minus b. The coordinates of the foci, plus or minus c, 0. And the equations of the asymptotes, which is going to be y is equal to plus or minus b over a x. Now, if the equation is in the following form where the y squared term is positive, then the transverse axis is on the y-axis. The coordinates of the vertices are 0 plus or minus a. The coordinates of the co-vertices are plus or minus b, 0. And the coordinates of the foci are 0 plus or minus c. The equation of the asymptotes are y is equal to plus or minus a over bx. Step 3, then we're going to solve the coordinates of the foci using the equation. C is equal to plus or minus the square root of a squared plus b squared. And then we're going to plot the vertices, co-vertices, foci, and asymptotes in the coordinate plane and draw a smooth curve to form the hyperbola. Now in example number 4, we're going to graph the hyperbola centered at 0, 0, given by the equation y squared over 64 minus x squared over 36 is equal to 1. And then we're going to identify and label the vertices, co-vertices, foci, and asymptotes. Step number 1, the standard form that applies to the given equation is y over a squared minus x squared over b squared is equal to 1. Thus, the transverse axis is on the y-axis. The coordinates of the vertices are 0 plus or minus a, which is equal to 0 plus or minus the square root of 64, which is equal to 0 plus or minus a. The coordinates of the co-vertices are plus or minus b, 0, which is equal to the plus or minus the square root of 36, 0, which becomes plus or minus 6, 0. The coordinates of the foci are 0 plus or minus c, where c is equal to plus or minus the square root of a squared plus b squared. So we know what a squared is, we know what b squared is, which is 64 and 36, which becomes 100 when we add them together. And the square root of 100 is 10, so it becomes plus or minus 10. So therefore, the coordinates of the foci are 0 plus or minus 10. Now the equations of the asymptotes are the following. Y is equal to plus or minus a over bx. We know that a is 8, we know that b is 6, so it's plus or minus 8 over 6x, but we need to reduce that, so we get plus or minus 4 over 3x. Number 7, we're going to plot and label the vertices and co-vertices, and then sketch the central rectangle. Sides of the rectangle are parallel to the axis and pass through the vertices and co-vertices. Sketch and extend the diagonals of the central rectangle to show the asymptotes. The central rectangle and asymptotes provide the framework needed to sketch an accurate graph of the hyperbola, label the foci and asymptotes, and draw a smooth curve to form the hyperbola. So, here we have our rectangle. We have our values, so we can see here that the vertices are located at 0, 8, and 0, negative 8. So 0, 8, 0, negative 8. We know our co-vertices are negative 6, 0, and 6, 0. We know our center is at 0. Our foci is at 0, 10, and 0, negative 10. And so what we can do is we would create a rectangle like we did over here. And if we draw through that rectangle and make an X, that's going to represent our asymptotes. So the positive asymptote is y is equal to 4/3 x, and the negative x asymptote is negative 4 over 3x.